back to episode 170 of Tall Boy Radio, and a special welcome goes out to country number 54 and all you listeners out there in Bahrain of all places. Be interested to find out if our guest tonight has ever been there. So, as I said, we have a guest, and if you're going to be honest, if you had a job or if you had a hobby, you'd like it to involve travel, wouldn't you? And our guest tonight has done exactly that. And we're looking forward to finding out a little bit about that. But before we do, let's get to our irregulars. Gaz, you been on any holidays recently?
Yeah, just got back. Hi, guys. Evening in the world. Just got back from a week in Cape Verde, which was absolutely beautiful. Me and the good wife managed to grab a week over the Easter holidays. We'll probably sort of get into it a little bit more during the podcast, but yeah, I had a fantastic time. Got back on Sunday evening. Unfortunately, straight back to work Monday morning, which didn't help, but there we go. Looking forward to this. Always fantastic when we get sort of guests on, and particularly people we haven't spoke to before, so newbies as such. So yeah, really looking forward to this, and let's see where it takes us. Nice one.
Dave, you been anywhere on the Easter holidays?
Norfolk. Does that count?
Language. Oh, sorry.
Terrible. Crikey. Norfolk for a few days, see some friends, which was nice, just to get away, do nothing for a while. So that was good. So, yeah, it's good to see where this one's going to go. We always say we want to see where the episodes are going to go. We never know what left turns, but in this case, it's where we're going to go geographically, I suppose.
Indeed. And as for myself, I've just got back from a few days in Disneyland Paris, taking the kids to see Mickey Mouse over the Easter holidays. So let's get to our guest. But before we do, we want to play a little trailer for a podcast as well. A friend of ours, B Word, who does the Bleach Brothers podcast, has started his own podcast called Unfiltered Discussion. So hear a little bit about it now if you're listening on the audio version of the podcast. Right then. Anyway, on with the show. So our guest tonight is Lee. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so hi guys, nice to meet everybody. 54 countries, it seems now. Bahrain is not somewhere that I've been just yet, but hey, it's on an ever-growing list, unfortunately. Yeah, so I'm from Brit Travels. I've got an Instagram and YouTube channel. But I kind of just thought it'd be good to start because I just enjoy traveling, and I'm from Britain, hence Brit Travels. It kind of makes sense. I was going to go with a Brit abroad to start with, but I didn't want to pigeonhole myself to going abroad all the time. And seeing as we had a little bit of a dodgy few years there, I'm kind of glad that I didn't go with that because I wasn't able to go abroad for 3 of those years. So yeah, it's been an ever-growing thing that started out as just a little bit of a hobby, and here we are. Really, it's a lot of fun getting to explore these new places. So
yeah, I bet you've been to quite a few places. So if you're listening to this podcast, jump on YouTube after you've listened to this, obviously, and just take a look at some of the places where he's been and some of the videos that he's made. Just out of interest, then, Gaz and I were chatting before, and we were just, how do you get into something like this?
Obviously, you have to have a day job to pay for these things. We're not all rich and famous just yet. But just before, obviously, I was traveling a lot beforehand and going and experience these places. And I thought, you sit and watch YouTube videos, you listen to podcasts and things like that. And I thought to myself, you know what? Could I do it? Have I got the time? Can I bring myself to put myself in front of a camera? And here I am doing it now as well. So seems to be a regular thing. And then I got made redundant. Bit of the real world here. Got made redundant just prior to the world going a bit funky with us. And as is always the case with redundancy, you get a little bit of money and you think to yourself, right, I'll take month and a half, 2 months off and go and do a couple of holidays. And I thought, well, I've got this time, I'll start the YouTube, start the Instagram and see where it takes me. And then lo and behold, the world goes and shuts down on us. And I think we all get put into a similar boat of not knowing what to do with ourselves. And yeah, I don't really want to talk about pre and post those types of things, but yeah, we know it was a bit of a dodgy time for all of us, but this was just something to keep me occupied during it, and it really came to be something that I just enjoyed doing. And I tend to not go anywhere that I don't go anywhere for the YouTube or for the Instagram. I go somewhere that I'm going to enjoy going, and then I take the camera along with me so it's actually something I enjoy and not just going around filming it for the sake of filming it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, just out of interest, then, where was the first place that you visited?
On YouTube or
Both.
both? Crikey. Probably Tenerife when I was a wee little one with the parents. I haven't been back there since I can actually recall it. I do remember, I don't know if any of you have been to Tenerife. It's quite a there's a water park there. I think it's Siam Water Park or something. And I just have this distinctive memory of this floating tap. I don't know if it's still there. This is, 25 years ago or something. But you get those small memories of when you're a kid. That's the memory that I've got, this floating tap. And thinking to myself when you're 5 years old of how the hell do they do this? How is it floating on water, And yeah, so that's the first real memory of going away, like actually on a vacation. In terms of the YouTube, we actually we went to Copenhagen. That was the first thing. That was one of those pre-booked holidays for the time in between having some time off for myself and then not being able to find a job for a number of months. So we went to Copenhagen, enjoyed some time there, and then we went over to the US for a couple of weeks. As everything was on the east side of the world, we went to the west side of the world to try and get as far away as possible. And I guess it kind of followed us around there. So you can have us to blame for that.
Well, the world needs someone to blame, that's for sure.
Don't we all?
So how does the tap float?
I think there's a clear pipe in the middle. I think ruining the magic here for everybody at home.
No spoilers, kids.
I was just wondering whether that sort of memory had haunted you into adulthood, where you had to go and find out.
Oh, I did. Yeah, absolutely. When I started to think about it a little bit more, Google became a thing. Obviously, when we're, like 10 years old, and www is all we know to type into. It's like whatever. www.internetexplorer.com was like the go-to rubbish. Now I know how to Google these things. Yeah, first thing I did, straight off. How do these work? And I'm pretty sure it's still there. I do want to go back. But as I said, it's an ever-growing list, right? And there's always new places to explore and always a lack of money to do it, sadly.
Do you actually have a list?
Don't want to get too deep into the Disney stuff for the time being, but yeah, I want to do the Disney castles. That's like an easy, let's check this one off. We're slowly cracking through that list. In terms of actual, like a bucket list per se, I've mostly ticked off my personal bucket list. The wife's got a few places that she wants to tick off as well, and we definitely will get to her places as we're now married and she's in charge. So
because that's how it works.
That's how it works, unfortunately.
6 months in and I'm still alive. So
well, given that this is recorded, that's not how it works at all. I don't know what you're talking about, you three.
So he's on next week with a black eye. You'll know why.
Yeah, so like I said, I've done my kind of bucket list for the time being, and now I'm probably going to get to explore some of those places again whilst I take the wife along, because a few of those were before we met. But yeah, there's just too many places out there, right? I'm big into like going to the theme parks and stuff like that. So if there's a theme park there, then I'm probably going to go for the theme park, or
Right.
go to the place and then go to the theme park along the way. Got to find where they are, and some of them are good, some of them are bad. Find out where they're there.
So in terms of sort of, you say that you've done your bucket list as such. Obviously, your YouTube channel, and you'll get people that will comment. And do you have a sort of almost a couple of locations that people have said, oh, why haven't you thought about going here, or why haven't you thought going there? Is that something that you would take on board in terms of feedback from the viewers? If they also say, oh, you must check out this place, is that something that then you think, oh, okay? Or is it literally just a case of you go where you want to, and if people like it, then sort of so be it?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of primarily the latter.
Yeah.
The comments and suggestions are always helpful to give me ideas, because I obviously, I'm not sat here researching all day and night. I'd love to be able to do that. But it's great for people to be able to give us suggestions on places to go. Somewhere somebody suggested recently was West Midlands Safari Park.
Okay. Yeah, been there.
Not a destination outside.
No.
So it's actually much easier. Thank you for that suggestion, guys. Easier to get to. It's just planning it in, right? Around the real world that we live in, and having the time to do it. I'm very much somebody that loves to jump a plane at the earliest convenience. But it's just not always possible. And even when you can, there's normally an issue doing that, with a delay or a strike somewhere or whatever. Or there'll always be. I think, Adam, you mentioned you come back from Paris recently.
Yeah, strikes on the way in and on the way out. We were very, very fortunate they weren't the terminals that we were landed in and taking off from.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we got we came back from Disneyland, I think 2 weeks before yourself, and we got caught both sides of it, actually. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. There's always those fringe cases, and people love a travel day that doesn't quite go to plan. It's always a little bit of entertainment. Obviously, we're hoping and praying as we're recording the video that it all goes to plan, and to some extent it's a bit of a boring video because it makes our lives a little bit easier. But yeah, things like that, the strikes, they do obviously cause us a few issues along the way.
In terms of your videos, how much sort of footage do you shoot to then edit? What would be a half an hour, 40-minute video as such? I mean, is it literally just that if you're on the ride, it's a POV, and if they're 5 minutes and we just let it roll, sort of thing? Fortunately, there are a few that I can just do that. If I'm up, like a show from Disney World, a POV of a ride or something like that, then yeah, happy days. It's very much easy to hit the tag on the end and the beginning, and we can set it live. In terms of the actual like videos themselves, the full length videos, the long form ones, sometimes we can go for an hour and a half footage, and I've got to try and whittle that down to 30 minutes. A lot of the time that's just me re-recording myself that I've screwed something up I've said. I've got a few minutes that I can throw out there. But yeah, I mean, it is about chopping and changing what I deem as good to put in. Something that's obviously not going to cause any copyright infringement or something like that, which we often sadly do get hit with as creators. Yeah.
But they've got to pay their bills as well as us. So yeah, there is a lot that's left on the shop floor, so to speak.
Right.
The cutting room floor, but most of the time it is like the dodgy footage of me making a mistake, saying something the wrong way. Be conscious to try and not put any curse words in there or anything. So I don't want to if I got to certainly places that we're going in terms of the Disney places and things like that, the chances of you having a younger audience watching it You know, that's not something that you want to put in front of them for very obvious reasons.
No, and it's interesting you say that in terms of the younger audience as well. And this is a common thing nowadays. So back in the day, when I were a young lad and we were planning a holiday, I'd go to the travel agents, I'd pick up a few brochures, paper brochures. Yes, folks, that used to be a thing. You didn't used to look at the destination on the internet. But to get that extra bit of a feel for the place that you're going to, something that we do now and have done for a while, and anywhere that we visited, is jump on YouTube and find people like yourself that make videos of their point of view while you're there, and especially for yourself and people, or the people out there that do this on a regular basis. They do it like in multiple visits, so they know the places to visit while you're there. They know that they've got the hints and tips to make your visit there a little bit more enjoyable. And if there's folks out there listening to this podcast that aren't doing it already, I would absolutely encourage you to do so, because it does wonders for the likes of yourself and your viewing figures, but it's really beneficial, and that is indeed how we came across yourself. When I was researching videos of Disneyland Paris, and the places I wanted to see when I was there, and my daughter, she's 6 years old. She watched a load of your videos and a load of other videos as well. And it's great to get that different perspective. So you're right, it is a fantastic thing to do. What about you guys? Gaz, you just come back from Cape Verde. Dave, you just come back from Norfolk. Is there any party while you're there? Have you thought about having a go at doing what Lee does and making a video of your time?
I haven't. I'll just add to what you said in terms of sort of when you were looking at Disneyland Paris. When we were looking at sort of Florida in particular, my two girls absolutely went and Googled various sort of parks and POV videos and this, that, and the, oh god, and it sort of heightens their anticipation, because they sort of can sort of see it, but you don't really feel it because it's through a video, but it whets their appetite, and you're like, oh my god, look at that sort of thing. So I just, to add what you were saying, it definitely whets the appetite for, I definitely want to go there. Would I do one? Probably not. It takes all my time to come on this podcast and put my ugly mug in front of, on this podcast. But so maybe put yourself out there from a I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love to travel, and it'd be fantastic to travel and experience all the places that, Lee obviously has been to and various other people have, but I don't know whether I could do it. I'm sure I could do it. Whether or not anyone would watch it, it'd be crap if I'm honest. So, but it's not something I've thought about when I'm there. Really, it's weird. It's not. I've just never thought about sort of taking. The only thing we did do was when we were in Florida. We had the old GoPro on the sort of selfie stick, and we were sort of various sort of tidal waves in water parks and that sort of stuff, and which is was amazing, brilliant, and you watch it back, oh, we had such a good time. But putting that out there for other people, not sure, if I'm honest.
What camera do you use, by the way, Lee? Do you use a GoPro or?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a combination. So I've got a Sony ZV-1, which is like the creator vlogging model that Sony are putting out there for people, and I do have a GoPro for that. Actually, we were at Alton Towers on Easter Monday, and the GoPro had to come out because we're in the UK, and of course Easter Monday, it was torrentially raining the whole day. Beautiful operations at Alton Towers, as you can imagine, in the torrential rain. But yeah, we kind of use a combination of those, and to be honest, just the iPhone as well. Picking up the iPhone, and the best camera is the camera that's on you all the time. It's so quick and easy to just pick up, and I mean, look at TikTok and Instagram Reels. Everybody can be a creator now, which is fantastic. And much like Gaz said, whether people want to watch it or not, there is always an audience. Thankfully, and I think it does come back to what you were saying, with people doing a lot of research for their vacations, somewhere like Disney World, going to Florida, for a lot of people, that is a once in a lifetime trip, and they want to make the most out of it. It's not a cheap place to go. There are ways you can do it cheaper, but you want to make the most out of it when you can get there. last year we took my wife and I, we got married out there, so we took a whole bunch of the family along, and it was basically her and I, we're fortunate enough to have been a few times, hence the reason getting married out there, because it appeals to us. We're like the guides for the rest of our family out there, taking them along, and they've got a few years on us, so I don't think we quite appreciated how much we can cram into a day versus what we're trying to make other people cram into a day. But yeah, if you've been, you know how expensive just the tickets alone are, like 500 quid for 2 weeks. And it's, it really adds up. Obviously, I do encourage anybody, if you can get out there, to get out there. Not out here giving financial advice to anybody. You may need a mortgage in some cases, depending on which hotel you choose, because some of them are, pretty pricey. And even we don't stay in the Disney hotels or the Universal hotels, and that's one of the ways we kind of try and save a little bit of money doing that, is we can get we get a villa for 2 weeks for 1,500 quid, as opposed to a Disney hotel, which will be 2.5 grand plus for 2 weeks. So it's,
when we went the first time we went sort of 5 years ago, 6 years ago. My daughters are 17 and 16 now, so we went and they were just about the right age for the sort of the Disney princess sort of that phase of their life. And don't get me wrong, they still love it now. But we stayed in a villa, and it was only down International Drive. It's basically half an hour, 40 minutes away from the parks. And we hired a car and stuff, which you would have to do when you're there. And that was and the villa was amazing, fantastic. And as you said, probably half the price of a hotel. It's just that you've got the half an hour, 40-minute drive in, and obviously when everybody's coming out of the parks, you've got however many thousands of people coming out of one park, and however many thousands of people coming out of another park, and they're all going on to International Drive, and it's like, oh, okay, and as wide as the 6-lane drives are, it takes a while. But there are ways and means. I mean, we went, and I think we did 18 nights, and literally out of 18 nights, I think we did something like 14 parks or something. It was like literally like park after park. And don't get me wrong, it was an amazing time, and it was fantastic. But we felt as though you could probably get away with you don't really need the hotels, because if you're going to do a lot of the parks, you basically just need a bench, you need a bed, and that's about it, because you don't need all singing or dancing facilities. If you're going to go and look at the parks, the fireworks are on at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. They probably finish at 10 o'clock. By the time you get in your car, it's 10:15. You then get out of the parks and you're on International Drive by 10:30. It's like, Christ, I'm knackered. I've been up 14 hours. I just want to go to bed. So there are ways and means.
I think that's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, you kind of got to assess what you want to do during that vacation. If you're somebody that does appreciate sort of sitting back, to be fair, even in a villa, on that, you can still sit back, and it's sometimes nicer because you've got your own pool and you haven't got everybody running around in front of you, knocking your chips and your chicken strips out your hand or something like that. So yeah, there's definitely ways of saving money, and I think the biggest tip ever, and I'm sure you probably appreciate this, is you just can't do it all, no matter how long you're there. And I think it's just, the first time I went was in 2017, I want to say, to Disney World. That was my first ever Disney park. The biggest place. So did zero research on it before going. Didn't even go to Disney. I went for a different reason. Disney just happened to be there, and I'm like, why not? Let's go. I'm already in Orlando. Let's go to Disney, and I had a great time regardless. So obviously I'd looked at a few POV videos and stuff like that, but I hadn't sat down and gone, right, here's an itinerary. Let's do step by step for the day. And still, sometimes it's still an enjoyable way of doing it, right? That trip kind of did change everything, because now, as I said, I've got the list of Disney parks that I want to go to around the world and slowly ticking it off. So it's slightly different, but yeah.
So I've seen one of your Instagram stories, so I happen to know which one you're going to next. But how meticulously have you planned that one?
That was supposed to be a last minute kind of cheap holiday. We were going over to, so the actual vacation was to go to the Philippines. We wanted to get out east because we hadn't been east since everything happened in the world. So I'm thinking now is the right time to start heading that way. Now we're all open and everything around the world. And then we started looking at flights, and most of the decent flights had a connection. Obviously, Philippines is quite far away, so we ended up with a connection in Hong Kong. And lo and behold, there's a Disney park in Hong Kong. So we're off to our next Disney park actually at time of recording next Saturday. Next Saturday we fly out to the Philippines, and then a week after that also we're going to be in Hong Kong. I said it started as a cheap vacation, and then by the time you start tacking on a Disney part to it, it goes up. And when you start looking at the hotels in what is supposed to be a cheap place, the Philippines, and you're like, actually, that hotel looks really nice. You start going through the list, and it slowly adds up, and you have a little a few beads of sweat rolling. That credit card bill is going to be expensive next month. As I said, no financial advice. Don't put everything on the credit card. It's not the best way of doing it, but needs must, I suppose. Yeah, so Hong Kong's the next one. It's a small park, 1 day park, 2 day park maximum, but it's the only one I was comfortable going to that has a land opening that I don't care about, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they all of the parks are obviously opening new things all the time. They try and entice visitors. Now there's a Frozen area opening later on in the year, and I don't care about that enough to wait to Hong Kong.
Yeah. Neither do I, but I know when Arendelle opens up in Disneyland Paris, I'm going to be going back with my daughter. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
Not through my choice.
Well, that's it, and it's a lot closer to go to Paris than it is to go to Hong Kong, right? So even if I want to do it, I'll wait till I think like next year or the year after for Hong Kong. Japan's on the list, Shanghai's on the list. We weren't quite comfortable enough going to Shanghai just yet. So we're gonna wait that out for maybe another year, 18 months or so. Japan we did book when everything kicked off, thinking the world would open up within 3 or 4 months and we'd be fine, we'd be good to go. And then 3 years later we were still talking about the same thing, right? So it's an interesting thing when you're trying to do everything a little bit cheaper, and you're booking direct with the hotel, you're booking direct with the attraction and things like that, and then having to cancel everything via email to people that don't understand English, and I obviously don't understand Japanese either. My Japanese is pretty poor, so trying to cancel all that in the middle of everything was definitely interesting. But that's on the list to go to as well. It's just, as I said, getting there, right? Like, it's the flights. The flights are the most expensive thing, especially nowadays. Even hopping over to Paris, 3-4 years ago, that would have been 40 or 50 quid, and now it's 80, 90 quid. So it definitely adds up.
It does. So Disney then, obviously that's a big thing with yourself. Before we get to the Disney bit then though, where's your most favorite place that you visited? If it's Disney, that's fine. If it's not, we'll be interested to hear which is your favorite place that you have visited.
Favorite place ever, actually, will say I have been to Japan already, and I will say Japan. It's just I was lucky and unlucky that I was only there for a week, and there's so much to take in that time. Had a few days in Tokyo, a few days in Osaka, and then it was time to hop back on the plane and go home. It was tacked on to the end of another vacation out that way. So Yeah, I think Japan is probably one of my favorite places. The culture of it, the hospitality that they show towards you, the cleanliness of the country as a whole is just like it's unparalleled anywhere in the world. As I said, I don't speak a lot of language, and that's a bit tricky over there because there's not a lot of English that's signed or spoken. But we're fortunate to have our phones on us all the time, and Google Translate that sign with the camera. Yep, I know what that says, and I mean, it's part of the experience, right?
Yeah.
I'm definitely not somebody to go, go abroad and sit and have an English breakfast. Although
No.
Go find an Irish bar somewhere. Yeah.
nothing wrong with an English breakfast at all. But I'm also not going to be, avoiding. I'm not going to be avoiding all of that culture, because I think that's the best part of, being in these places is being absorbed in the culture.
Yeah.
What's the sort of you mentioned there Japan being your sort of favourite. What's the most, I suppose, I say exotic, but most sort of out there place that, like, not weird, I'm trying to think of the word, sort of eclectic place, is it somewhere like, I don't know, you've been to, I don't know, the most southern tip of somewhere, or the most northerly point of somewhere? Where's the most sort of some most far-flung place you've been to?
Far-flung would probably be Sydney.
Yeah.
That's about as far as we could get. Did that incredibly stupidly. In the day job, I had 5 days to carry over from the previous year. As you sometimes do, you save up those holiday days and think, oh, I've got 5 days to use before the end of March.
Okay.
What can I do with these? So I started researching and thought, yeah, why wouldn't I go to Sydney for a week?
Wow, a long way to go for a week.
Like, I did not think this out at all. 36 hours of travel time to get there.
Yeah.
Popping sleeping pills to combat the jet lag, and then by the time you're settling into the 12-hour time difference, it's time to jump on a plane and head back. But that was a fantastic experience. Did really enjoy it out there. I think actually at least Sydney, 5 days a week was enough. It's very much like a business capital over in Australia, obviously. Would have loved to have more time to dart around the places, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. It was a stupid but fun time.
I was really lucky when I was 17, and I played cricket to half decent standard, and was fortunate enough to tour basically the east coast of Australia, and we were there for 5 weeks, I think. And we sort of we flew into place just south of Brisbane, just on the southern tip of the Gold Coast, basically, and then travelled all down through the east coast, down into sort of Newcastle, Gosford, Sydney, and then down into Canberra, and then we flew out from Canberra. And it's a long time ago now. It's 30 odd years ago now, but it was. I still remember it, and I remember getting off the plane, and I remember the first hotel we went to, and I remember the match, and it's a fantastic place, and my wife's been fortunate enough to go as well, and it's somewhere that we've both said we would love to go back. We haven't been back since, but we both said we would love to go and go back to a couple of places that we've been to individually and go back together, but then look at a couple of other places, just because Australia's a vast country and there's so many different things you can do. You can go completely remote, you can go mountains, you can go forests, you can go deserts, you can go, beach. There's just massive variety in that country. So it is definitely a place we said we'd love to go back to, but I was very, very lucky to go in the first place and had an amazing time, absolutely amazing time.
Yeah, it is a beautiful country, and I think if you're somewhere that if you're someone that doesn't like to get too far out of your comfort zone, granted it is a long flight. I mean, they speak English over there. The culture is very similar to the UK, so it's definitely somewhere that is nice and easy to go to, outside of the 30 hours to get there, 30 hours to get back, and I think, but much what you said about with the differences around the country of having the mountains, having the desert, things like that. I think that's why we like to frequent the US so much, because, and also why a lot of the US doesn't, a lot of the people in the US don't come outside of the country too much, because you really do have 4 seasons all year round at some point in the US, and there's so much to do there. So again, it's one of those other places that, if you want to sort of stick in your comfort zone, so to speak, it's Australia, the US, both speaking the native tongue. Granted, US has bastardized it a little bit, sidewalks and soda and all that lot, but it's football. We won't go into that too much, but yeah, it's those places that have got that variety. And I think, we sit there and look at a map and Australia looks that big, and I don't think we actually realize that Australia is that big.
Huge, massive.
I think I had a look at one of those like real world map websites or something, where it kind of sizes it as you move the country around. You move Australia over and it takes up the whole of Europe.
Yeah.
And you think, but it looks this small on a globe that I've got here.
And it's weird because the globes, obviously, they magnify the country. So if you buy a globe in this country, like the UK is like much bigger than actually relative to other countries. And as you say, you go to Australia and you look all the way down there, you think, oh, it's not that bad. And and Adam's got sort of family over in America, and they say something similar. They will drive for 3 hours, 4 hours, and not even be out of their state. And we drive for 4 hours, or in another bloody country. And
you've changed language like 17 times. And, you've got a new flag and a different ancestor from 6 countries across. It's completely different. I'm a bit of a driver phobe, I suppose. I don't like driving any more than about 2.5 hours. And then you're speaking to an American person, and they'll drive an hour and a half, 2 hours just to go to the grocery store. And we don't want to walk, we don't want to drive any more than 15 minutes to go to Tesco's or Sainsbury's. That's far for us. Or to get petrol for the car, that BP garage is a bit far out the way, to them they'll drive half hour, 45 minutes just to get a pint of milk or whatever, and it's normal. But I mean, I do always hire a car when I go to the US. There is no other way to do it. I don't think, going back to Disney, I suppose if you are staying like in a Disney hotel on site, you can kind of get away with it. And you're in that Disney bubble. You pay for the Disney bubble through the nose, so it's like horses for courses. What do you want?
But if you're in the Disney bubble, then you sort of feel as though, okay, you might be in a Disney bubble, but you sort of feel as though you need to look at Universal Studios or SeaWorld, or and part of your SeaWorld ticket includes Busch Gardens, which is a trek and it's a drive. That's like miles. I say miles away. It's like an hour plus drive or something. So you do need a car, absolutely. I would say that. But one of the things, do you generally travel? And I know you say it's abroad. Would Europe be a focus? And you've been to lots of different places within Europe as such, or is it literally just globally wherever you fancy? Because I suppose you can get away with, if you have your 4 days carry over, you probably can go to various European places and do 2 or 3 nights and then be back, as opposed to you can't really do Australia or America for 3 or 4 days, because you haven't got that enough time.
No, exactly. And we do, we try and get out to Europe a couple of times a year, because it is, I've said a few minutes ago that the price of flights has gone up. We've experimented with driving over to, I say we, the wife does the driving over to France. But we've experimented with that, and we'll go, we've got a series coming up on the YouTube channel where we were in Switzerland We did that together with Disneyland Paris. We flew over to Disneyland Paris. We had a party at Disneyland for annual pass holders. That was a special ticketed event. If you had an annual pass, you could go out. You could purchase this ticket. They'd do a special show, song and dance for you, and actually a scavenger hunt around the park, which was a lot of fun. Sadly, it was all in French, so that was a case of trying to translate it on the fly. But then we got trained from Paris to Zurich in Switzerland, and then did a few things out there. So we do try and get out to Europe. As I said, Copenhagen we went to. I want to get back out to Spain. I haven't been out to Spain in 10 years. The last time I was out in Spain, I went to Salou and Ventura way, and beautiful area. And I think we do kind of, like, we don't give enough attention to the UK and Europe and the places that are kind of on our doorstep, in terms of versus going outside. I think the idea of going east this time was because we hadn't been east in such a long period of time, and having been to Thailand and Bali and places like that historically, I like, as I said, to be absorbed in the culture, and it's definitely somewhere that you can be absorbed over there. But we love that. Somewhere I want to go is like Sweden and Nordic region, and even some of the Arab states, UAE, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, places like that I'd love to get to. But it's just about getting the time. I think one thing I do have, I said I ticked off most of the bucket list. I want to do the continents, so to speak, North America, South America, Europe, Africa, all those, so we're slowly, I need to do Africa and South America and Antarctica. That one,
that probably less likely to do that. That might be a bit of a challenge.
It'll be kind
Get
of
yourself on sort of research station up there, or something. Just claim you're going to do some research on something or other and fly out there or whatever.
Check out a couple more YouTube channels to get the research on that. But yeah, I think that's like the next kind of bucket list kind of thing that I want to tick off, is get to those. The wife has been to South Africa. She's done a couple of like voluntary things out there, which are absolutely fantastic, helping animals and shelters and stuff like that out there. And she does really want me to go along. We've just not got round to it yet. That is somewhere that's not as easy to plan as.
If you did, because it's sort of in a way so far away, if you did to South America, would it be trying to go there for a 2, 3, 4 week, if you're lucky, period, and you would go to try to do, Brazil, Chile, Peru, Argentina, or would it be, we're going to go and do a week in Brazil, and we're going to go to Rio, we're going to go to wherever, Brasilia or whatever, we're going to go elsewhere? Would it be try to get as many countries ticked off as you can, or would it be within one of the countries try to go to various different places?
Yeah, it's a hard balance, isn't it? Like between, ticking off as much in that country as possible versus pulling a few countries into it. Something that I always get pulled up on by Becky is when I say, we would have loved to have a couple more days there, wouldn't we? And I say it every single vacation that we go on. And it's the last vacation that we did. The big one for the wedding honeymoon was Orlando, California, and Hawaii. Very fortunate to do that. But again, it just wasn't. It's never enough time. You always. The worst thing to do is come back and look at things after the fact and go, we missed that.
I wish we'd have done that, or it's
it's a 12-hour flight to get back there. It's impossible to go and do it. But yeah, I mean, we do try and do kind of as much in a location as possible, but time, we wanted to do We wanted to do California, and we'd done California already at that point. That was one of our first like big vacations together. But we wanted to do a couple of little bits and pieces over there, and it was a good stop off on the way to Hawaii, because it's quite difficult to go from Orlando all the way to Hawaii. I think there's only 1 or 2 flights a week that do it, and it's it's like 10, 11-hour flight. So we wanted to do that stop off in California, and I think it would be very similar if we were to do something like that in South America, where we probably wouldn't go from Brazil all the way to Peru. Take a I don't know, maybe an 8-hour flight over there. Maybe we would stop and do a 3-hour flight to the next country across, stay there 2 days, 3 days, move across, and that's a lot easier, especially in those landlocked countries around that region. And certainly it was somewhat easy doing France to Switzerland before, because we could just hop on a train. The strike didn't help because it did cancel the trains. We had to, as opposed to having one direct train from Paris to Switzerland, we had 4 changes or something on the way. But the hand that you're dealt, when that happens, it's, as I said, everybody loves a travel day that goes wrong, apart from people that it's going wrong.
So the Disney thing then, you a lot of your videos, and let's be honest, there's quite a few vloggers that do stuff about Disney as well, isn't there? I'll be honest, Disneyland Paris is my first experience as an adult, or as I've never been to a park before. So taking my kids there and experiencing it through them by proxy or vicariously, whichever the correct phrase, I loved it. However, I will say I absolutely loved it for myself as well. It is a fantastic experience. What is it that you love about doing those Disney parks?
I think for me, some of the earliest memories that I had was going to the likes of Thorpe Park, Chessington as a kid. Back when safety rules weren't really a thing, and I slipped under the bar on the banana boat, and I remember my dad, he still brings it up now, how he bruised his ribs trying to hold on to me on the banana boat and things like that. But I love the theme parks. Unfortunately, the wife loves going to the theme parks as well. But I think in terms of like Disney, and also we're big Universal fans. I'm an annual pass holder to Universal in Orlando, fortunately. And I think it's just that it's a whole different level of immersion. If you certainly if you went to Disneyland Paris and you walk into Avengers Campus, or you walk into the Ratatouille area or something like that, and everywhere you look, you have 0 sight lines that aren't what they're supposed to be. And that's what we love about it, especially going, in Disney over in the US, or in Universal over there. Universal, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, walking into Diagon Alley or walking into Hogsmeade Village, and it's like, I'm a big movie lover, always have been, I think I always will be. And walking what feels like onto the set of Harry Potter when you walk into there, especially Diagon Alley, you can easily walk past it because it's like hidden behind a wall. And
we did when we were there. We literally walked past it. We did exact. My 2 daughters and my wife, to be fair, they love Harry Potter. I'm not as big a Harry Potter fan, and there's various. Adam will smile because he knows the reasons why I'm not a Harry Potter fan.
He hates it.
I hate Harry Potter because basically J.K. Rowling ripped off J.R.R. Tolkien, but that's a completely different matter.
I completely agree. I know.
Having said that, we went and we stood next to the night bus, and they had a photo next to the night bus. We turned around and there was just a wall, and we went, where's this Diagon Alley? And then it almost by chance, you sort of pop your head out, oh bloody hell, it's through there, sort of thing.
Yeah,
and you go in,
dragon breathing fire,
and all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's Gringotts, and there's this massive, great big dragon. It's literally right there. And as soon as you walk it, and that's one of the reasons why my 2 daughters, even now at, as I say, 17 and 16, they can't wait. We're going back this year, and it's probably the last holiday that we'll all go, because actually my eldest is off to university and stuff. So, and they want to go, and there's various different new attractions within the Harry Potter world. I'm a massive Star Wars fan, so I want to go to the new big Star Wars at Hollywood Studios and stuff. So, you know, so, but yeah, we literally the first time we went past Diagon Alley, and it was like, oh, what is it, sort of thing. And actually, you walk in though, and it literally is just like you're immersed in that world, and everywhere you look is Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And you go to Ollivanders, and I'm showing my Harry Potter knowledge now. Like, you know, you go to Ollivanders, you go. But there's even now, my two daughters are like, oh my God, I've got to look for this, and I want to look for this because we didn't see that first time. I'm like, really? We spent about 5 hours in there. How could you miss it? You know, it's like, Jesus.
Yeah, it's easily done, and I think that's what the appeal is. It's just being so immersed, and why we keep going back to Orlando, why we keep going back to the Disney parks. Like I said before, like they're always bringing a new attraction every year, and it's you know, we're waiting for Japan because they're launching a whole new land with about 5 attractions next year. As this year it got delayed, and so we're kind of like, you know, you need to pick the best time, but there never is a best time. You'll always miss out on something. You'll always want to do something again. And you know, my parents, my family, they all kept saying to us, why do you keep going back to Disney? Why do you keep going back to Orlando? And then as we got married, we took them over with us, and now they're saying to us, when are we going to go back to Orlando? When are we going to plan the next one? You know, and I think it's just because it's a theme park that's completely plussed up, you know, and the attention to detail is just unparalleled. The stupid things like, you know, the snacks, the food, you know, just walking around and sipping a cocktail as you're walking around, and the attention to detail in Wizarding World, they're selling Stella, you know, Stella Artois, as opposed to, you know, Bud Light or Coors or whatever. You know, it's those little details that you just wouldn't think of, but they've obviously really put a lot of thought into that kind of thing. So I think that's the kind of stuff that appeals to us. And as I said, we've done it mostly on the cheap. The wedding itself obviously was not cheap, and that vacation was not cheap. But yeah, we're always planning the next one. It's a difficult one.
It's funny enough, actually. Before I went, Gaz, I was chatting to Gaz about it, so I know we've been to Disneyland Paris, and he said to me, it is a different level there, the way they do it, and you're 100% right. Wherever you look, you are completely immersed in that experience. I have to say, though, from my own point of view, I hate roller coasters. I do not enjoy them in any way at all. However, my daughter absolutely loves them, so I took her on Hyperspace Mountain. She's only 6, but she's tall enough to go on. God bless her. And the relief I had when I got to the end and she was still in the seat next to me and the straps had done the job. I wasn't bothered about myself. I went through. You can even see on the photograph, I'm trying to reach around and make sure it's still held on properly. What my flimsy little left wrist is going to do compared to the straps, I don't know.
You've mentioned a photograph here, so I'm feeling that this should be plopped into the video.
I'll stick it on.
It's funny because Adam, he popped something on sort of social media, and there was a photo, and I looked at this photo, and I've got it on my phone, and I just circled a bit, and I sent it back, going, "What the is that?" And literally, his face is absolute abstract horror, So there's him who's got abstract horror, his daughter next to him who likes it, but it's there. It literally is like petrified, and it adds faces like. But the two people behind him are having a whale of a time. They're literally, the two people behind him are like, "Woo, let's go!" And Adam literally looks like he is. It's just the funniest photo ever.
Yeah. I think when you know where the camera is, you're good, and you can kind of do that. When you don't know where the camera is, that's the best part, because you really get that stupid face of, "Oh Christ, here we go." You know,
brilliant.
Well, they were two Irish ladies who happily took the piss out of me the second I got off that ride.
The thing is when you come off the ride and you go into this sort of cubicle, whatever it is, and you see all of the different people, and you can just imagine those two people, the two are going, look at that guy's face, and like you're standing there, yes, that's me, yes.
Exactly.
I dread to think some of the people that take a piss out of me, some of the pictures I've you know, when you do know where the camera is and you can play up to it, that's fun. But yeah, when you don't and you do get that stupid face and you halfway through a smile or do that, whatever, you know, it's
Brilliant.
just
I get
cherish, right? So
I get terrible sickness, motion sickness, absolutely awful. So when I have a dodgy back that is prone to being severely hurt on these rides. But when we went, I thought I've got to go on some things with the kids. We went on one of the Harry Potter ones because there's two, I think. It's one where you're horizontal in about 5 or 6 seats, and it's a mixture of movement and audio visual 3D, or I don't know if it's 3D, but
motion sickness inducing ride, that one.
yeah, well, I got off that and it was probably 3 or 4 hours. I was just feeling rotten, but in between that, it was then the Hulk and had to go on the Hulk, and I thought, okay, but actually that was fine. I don't find these things scary, and it didn't actually make me sick. I was just sitting there with, I think it was Alice next to me, screaming her head off, and it was like, well, this is a bit pointless, isn't it? I didn't get, this is a bit pointless, isn't it? It was like that. But then we went. This is the embarrassing bit, if that wasn't embarrassing enough. Then we went to the Minions ride, I think it was.
Yeah.
And at this point, I was just having enough of feeling sick from the Harry Potter one, and I just said, "Look, I'm avoiding anything that says don't go on it if you've got a bad back, because I just didn't want to wreck my back in the middle of the holiday." And then anything that was a high alert for motion sickness, I thought I've chanced it now. I didn't get away with it, so I got to the Minions, and it said if you have motion sickness, you can go through this door, and you can sit in a different area. So I thought, okay, fair enough, I'll do that. So you go through these doors and you're channeled apart, and I'm standing there with 2 other people. Well, I'm standing there in wheelchairs, and there's a picture above. There's a picture above of just like a wheelchair, and I'm standing there with these, and like 300 people in the other lanes to the left. And you go in there and you just basically sit on a seat at the front.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's good that they have that as well. For that time, especially at Universal, there are a few of those rides that really throw you through the ringer. Not even, like you said, with the Incredible Hulk coaster, that it does batter you around a bit, but it doesn't give you the motion sickness like the Harry Potter ones would do. But Minions with the seats moving. Even for me, I like going on roller coasters, but they do throw me.
One of the worst ones we queued for, I think it was a Simpsons ride, and I don't normally suffer motion sickness, and we did Animal Kingdom, we did Avatar, which is fantastic, and that literally is like not quite blow your mind, but as an experience, that really is brilliant. But then you look, we sat on the Simpsons one. I came out of there, oh my God, I felt sick as a dog. But similar to you, Dave, I was like, oh my, I don't, and it wasn't a roller coaster. It's like it's like a motion, sort of immersive thing, and it makes you feel like you're going down a roller coaster, but you're not. Sort of thing, and it was like, oh my God, and I came out and I was like, oh God, I feel really ropey. Then my daughters were like, right, let's go on this. And like, God, do we have to?
Simpsons reminds me of one of those ones that you'd see at like the fairground or something. It's shaped like a rocket ship, and you sort of go in pitch black inside, and the door will come down, and it'll be you're driving around a NASCAR track or something like that. It's a very similar kind of experience, but it really does. I think that's probably the worst one on site at Universal in terms of like motion sickness inducing. It's a dodgy, it's a dodgy one for sure. It's one that we do sparingly. I'm quite fortunate, as I said, to be an annual pass holder to Universal. It's a bit more expensive than going over than being a pass holder to the Merlin parks here in the UK.
Right, yeah.
But by the time you factor in the cost of parking's $27 per day. To upgrade to an annual pass was, I think, like $200 or $300. By the time you've done it for a week, you've paid back the cost of your annual pass anyway, just in parking charges and discount on burger in Simpsons Land or whatever. So it kind of, that's the kind of way we try and save money doing it that way. Sadly, it doesn't really work, because then we say we've
saved that, we'll spend it somewhere else.
Let's go over again. We've got the annual pass, right? The tickets are free. Our hire the flight and the hotel are not free, though.
Yeah.
So, what about Fast Pass? Do you always go for Fast Pass or whatever the relevant name is?
No, not at certainly not at Universal. It's a couple of £100 a day. They opt a similar mentality to the parks over here, where I think over here you go to Alton Towers and it's like £80 a day for all of your fast passes. Universal's 200 odd quid a day. It is free if you stay in a premium hotel.
That's interesting. That's a tip for you.
So, we haven't done that just yet, because with there only being 2 of us, the justification of the cost isn't quite there. But if there's, a family of 4 or 5, getting that premium hotel, and then you get the express pass for both, even just for one night, you get it for both days.
Yeah.
And you're saving £200 a person that way, when the hotel cost could be, £500, let's say, which still is not cheap. I'd love to have enough money to throw away £500 on one night in a hotel. But we're fortunate as like being from the UK, we get special tickets to these places, to Universal, to Disney. It's always a 2-week ticket, because we're over there for those 2 weeks. So I think a lot of the time you don't necessarily need that express pass. You can queue up, whether you enjoy queuing up or not.
I think the thing with the queues, though, is that, and it's something that some of the parks in the UK just cottoning onto, is they always make sort of the queuing part of the experience. So they'll put things on, and there's various sort of monitors and TV screens, and there's episodes, or there's music, or there's entertainment, or and yeah, queuing is a bit of a bind, but it's one of those things that you think, and as you said, Lee, you're probably there for 2 weeks, so your passes are probably 2 weeks, so therefore you go to Universal and you do Islands of Adventure and whatever, and you do the 2 parks. And we didn't quite get to that, so we'll go back, because our tickets are valid for 2 weeks, so you can get to go back, and then you can pick and choose. So yeah, I think the queuing isn't as bad over there as it is here, because it felt when we were there like there was sort of more things to do whilst you were actually in the queue, if that makes sense. Yeah. And they make that more of part of the experience.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think, one of the parks, like a love-hate relationship. We're based down south. We're about 15-20 minutes away from Legoland. Thorpe Park's 30 minutes away or whatever, so we're in quite a nice location. But I've got kind of a love-hate relationship with Thorpe Park, because I love the roller coasters there, but you're also queuing for 90 minutes for a 2-minute ride. I don't know if you've been to.
Yeah, we did the Merlin Pass for a couple of years. We only live half an hour away from Alton Towers, so Alton Towers is on our doorstep effectively. So, and my youngest daughter in particular loves roller coasters. She would go to Alton Towers sort of 3 or 4 times in the summer break, school holidays, sort of thing. And we the first time we went to Thorpe Park, we loved it. Because it wasn't that busy and it was brilliant. And the rides, actually, if you stack the rides up and you like your white knuckle rides, Thorpe Park probably stacks up really, really well against Alton Towers, because the rides themselves are really, really good.
So, yeah.
The park itself isn't as clean as Alton Towers. It's not presented as well. I know it's a bit like the Amity Island thing from Jaws, and they tried to do that whole sort of rustic bit, and there's the saw bit and all of that. So, but the park itself doesn't feel as nice. But the rides stack up. So if you wanted to go for the rides, it's very good. Yeah. If you wanted to go for the experience, it's not quite as good, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what you said about the like the queue experience at Disney and Universal versus here. It's like, and creating that like complete immersion over in those versus here, whereas you've kind of got like Swarm Island, you've got Soar, but it's not fully formed.
Yeah, and the Soar bit in America, you can imagine them literally going to town and it being amazing. Whereas at Thorpe Park, it's just sort of okay, got the odd cage here or there outside, and then you go in and it's like, oh, okay, this is a bit better. Whereas if it's in America, you'd be like, they literally will go to town on it.
Yeah, they'll probably pull out fake shotguns and be throwing up blanks at you or something like that. Right next to you.
Do you want to play a game? There's a guy coming around saying, do you want to play a game? Like, not really, if it, and all of that sort of
something.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a different level. It's a different level of immersion, and I think, as I said, love-hate relationship for Thorpe Park, because I really do love the rides there. It's just the justification to queue up for 90 minutes for something that lasts 90 seconds. With something like Stealth, even it's not even 90, it's like 30
Stealth
seconds.
Is great, and then you do that half turn and you think, oh, this is like brilliant, and then it's like, oh right, okay, that's like 30 seconds or whatever it is, it's done. And you're like, yeah, and don't get me wrong, it's great, but yeah, 2 hours.
But you just queued for 90 minutes for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And if you are an annual pass holder, fantastic, because you're going to go back the following week, 3 weeks later, whatever.
Yeah.
If you're paying 40 quid for it, 50 quid for it, and you can only get, 3 rides in because the parks are only open until 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
3 or 4 rides in, you kind of feel a little bit like, have I got my money's worth out of it?
And that was the thing the reason that we did the Merlin pass, really, because Alton Towers now is like, I think it's a family of 4, 2 adults, 2 kids. It's like 200 quid.
Yeah.
It's like 200 quid, and that's before you buy food. So it's 200. So it's basically 250 quid for the day. And I can't remember what we paid for the Merlin passes, but basically, if you went to Alton Towers twice and Thorpe Park once, you've got your money. And then you've got all of your dungeons, you got all your Sea Worlds and all of your Two Swords and everything else, and all in. And we were like, well, we'll do that, and we got so much value out of the Two Swords tickets. It was ridiculous. But I take your point. If you're buying each of those tickets individually for each of those days, you'd be like, yeah, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, it really is just managing those costs, and at the moment we're both fortunate and unfortunate to not have kids. The wife and I.
Fortunate.
I didn't know if your kids would be listening. I don't want to.
They might be. I tell them enough.
Make sure the door's locked behind you or something. Coming back in, but yeah, and it really does. It really does add up. We are fortunate that we've got 2 incomes, no kids at the moment, and we can not get away with wasting 40 or 50 quid. It's all 40 or 50 quid, still a lot of money to throw away, but it doesn't affect us as much when we're not spending 200 quid to take 4 or 5 people to there for a day. And yeah, it really does add up. It's getting up there, and it is a whole day. So if for us living down south, getting up to Alton Towers, it takes, I think as I said, we did it last Monday. It was 3 hours each way. 6 hours of driving in a day is, no matter what way you cut it,
it's not fun,
it's a long day. So it's ways.
I tell you what, as well, it's something very rare for Tour Boy Radio. We've actually had quite a few useful tips and financial tips at that as well for any of our listeners tonight.
No financial advice.
Yeah. The credit card one was not the best advice that we could give out there, unless you plan on paying it off straight away. It's great for getting your insurance online and stuff like that, folks. But pay it off straight away. That's my best advice to you. So we're coming up then to roundabout way, a little bit over the hour mark, to tell you the truth, but it's been great chatting to you, Lee. So we're going to go around and see if the guys got any final questions for you. I got one. Dude, you ever done Vegas, and you got any plans to do in Vegas? Because some good rides there.
We have done Vegas, yes. A few years back, before the vlog in time. We stayed in New York.
So,
Opposite the MGM. We went up to the Strat. There's a couple of rides on top of the Strat. One that I think is actually free now. One that is like a drop tower right on the very top. One that hangs you over and spins you around, and another that kind of does that and then pivots off the top. I don't enjoy heights.
And so you just tell this after about an hour of doing all these rides. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm somebody that I like to push the limits a bit. I'll do it, but believe me, coming off of that, it was like jelly leg situation. I did feel like I was getting a bit,
I think you want to tell a story about when you were there. You were going to go on the ride.
I paid to, and this is the only ride I've ever chickened out of, okay? And I don't like rides, but I paid to go on that ride, okay? And I was stood there queuing to get on it, and it looks utterly terrifying. You watch it on any blog or whatever, you're 100 or whatever stories up, it's even more terrifying, I promise you. And there was a woman on the front of there, she didn't scream at all, but they had to get a security guard to come and prise her fingers off the ride. She couldn't physically get off it. And I said to the wife, no, this is not for me. Forget that.
It's a dodgy ride. It just something about, as I said, like throw me around a roller coaster. I've done stupid things. I've done a skydive. I've done all that. I don't like heights, but I'll do it. But that was a strange experience. You're completely out of control of that. It just, something about seeing the ground coming at you as you're but yeah, Vegas is a fantastic experience. Spending far too much money in the casinos, it's very easily done. I'll win the next hand, and you never win the next hand, and they come around with the drinks that are free, just a fiver in the glass on their tray or something, because they know you're gonna just continue playing, and before you know it, you've dropped 200 quid on the blackjack table, and you've not won a single hand. Vegas, Vegas is a lot of fun, but we were only there for, as I said, could always do a couple more days. We're only there for 3 or 4 days, as part of that kind of first vacation that the wife and I did together in California. Flew over to Vegas for a few days, did a few things up there, and yeah, it's definitely somewhere I'd love to go back.
Yeah, well, I love Vegas. I did it several times pre-kids, and got a while to wait for my kids are 21. I can take them there, and don't get me wrong, that's going to be expensive. Dave, you got any questions, dude?
Yeah, you said you travel around the UK as well. You ever been to Stroud?
Have I ever been to Stroud? I've driven past Stroud. Don't know if it's the namesake or not. Yeah, up Bath way, isn't it? Up Bath, Bristol, kind of M4 corridor way. I've driven past. I've never been. I probably should get there at some point.
Yeah, I think you should.
We need some sound effects on this soundboard now. As Dave's random question.
Just that was random, but I was expecting, like, have you ever been to Norfolk, and then explain why you was in Norfolk? But no, have you ever been to Stroud? It's like, interesting. Okay.
Dave's random question.
That's the soundbite, dude.
That's the soundboard for next time. Yeah.
Gaz.
No real question. Just look, I've had really good fun. Love chatting to you, Lee. Love listening to your stories about where you've been, what your next sort of ventures are going to be. Keep doing what you're doing. It's great. And if you enjoy it, then yeah, absolutely keep going for it. Keep doing it, dude. But love the episode. Love chatting. Love catching up. And I'd love to get you on again, sort of later on this year, whenever it may be, and just sort of say, right, it was a bit of an update. Where have you been to? What was your next adventure sort of like, and what else have you got planned? So looking forward to next time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I appreciate the invite. It was a lot of fun to. Yeah, a bit nervous being on here to start with, but
yeah, we're friendly. We're all friendly. It's fine.
Yeah, it's been great fun, and I think the listeners are going to have some enjoyment, and I'd love to come back.
Oh, dude, yeah, we'd love to have you back.
Get you back. Yeah.
We do get a little bit of that. Sometimes you invite people on the podcast and they expect that we're going to tear them apart and give them some stick. Like,
yeah.
Well,
that isn't us.
That's what it was going to be.
Now you know what it's going to be. You might be like, no, definitely not going back there now. But we'd love to have you back.
It's been a lot of fun. It has genuinely been a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed like talking and sharing stories with you guys. And if you can't tell, I do enjoy talking about theme parks and traveling and stuff like that. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I wasn't.
Absolutely.
And, we've all got our vices. I think it's good when you find the one that works for you that is legal as well.
Indeed. Now, before we let you go, we need to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, which is Ollie's Snacks. So if you're on your olives, your nuts, your pretzels, or your chocolate covered pretzels, head over to ollies-ollies.com and use the promo code TALLBOYRADIO, all one word, all capitals, if you're based in the UK, and you'll get 20% discount off your order. And with every order placed on their website, they donate a school meal to a child in need with the help of One Feeds Two. So, Lee, would you like to say goodbye to our listeners? We totally appreciate you having you here. We've loved hearing your stories. We all love travel. Everybody loves to get away from what it is that they do and where they live just for a short period and then have to come back to their mundane reality and then plan the next trip away. And we hope that when the folks at home do that, they use your videos if they're going to go and visit some of the places that you've visited. So if you'd like to say your goodbyes to our listeners, that would be great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just want to say thank you, everybody that's listened. Hope everybody's enjoyed the conversation. Certainly enjoyed being here. And be great if you are planning on traveling, if you have thought of any tips out of this. As said, no financial advice. Pay off the credit card in time. But hopefully you've got a few tips and you've enjoyed sharing a story with us. If anybody does want to subscribe, by all means, come check out the Instagram, check out the YouTube. Love to have you around, pop a comment, things like that. Fantastic to have you as part of the team.
Indeed. And where can we find you on social media? What's your Instagram handle and what's your YouTube handle?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Brit Travels. So it's all one word, Brit as in British. And we're traveling. As I said at the top of the hour, Brit abroad. Didn't want to pigeonhole myself, so we're at Brit Travels.
Winner. Guys, you want to say goodbyes, dude?
Yeah, just echo what I said a few minutes ago. Loved having Leon. Always great when we get new guests, new experiences, new conversations. Not exactly sure where we're going to go on an episode, where we're going to go on the podcast, and what we're going to talk about. It's great just listening to Lee's sort of stories and a bit of travel advice here or there, places to go. So yeah, look forward to next time, and definitely look forward to next time we have him on and talking about his adventures forthcoming.
Indeed, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely, Lee. Good to have you on, and I think there's so much more we could have talked about. Like we've joked about the tips that we've kind of threaded into it, but just to sit and what's your top 10 tips for going here, top 10 tips for going there. All the best things that you've encountered, the worst things, the things that have gone wrong, the place where you got lucky. There's just so much more. So I think I'd definitely organise for you to come back on at some point.
I think we need. I need you as a producer because you've just given me 3 or 4 south for a video selection. So yeah.
We're available for that as well, by the way. We won't charge you that much, I promise you.
No, we don't charge. We don't charge for the most part. But no, that's a really good idea, to be honest, Dave. We will get you on, Lee, as well, if you're open to that. And actually, we will do a travel tips episode. I think that would be really, really beneficial. And if we give you a little bit of heads up as well, you can put a bit of thought into that and share your tips, and we can share some of mine and some of Dave's and some of Gaz's for what that is worth. So if you do want to find Tallboy Radio on social media, you can find at Tallboy Radio on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and at Tallboy Radio Podcast on Instagram. Obviously, head over to our website, tallboyradio.com. If you've enjoyed this episode or any other episode, if you want to give us any feedback on anything, we'd love to hear from it. Mail at tallboyradio.com. But as always, thank you very much for listening. We'll be back next week with something entirely different, and hopefully we'll be back at some point in the future with Lee giving you some travel tips and more useful on the kind of stuff that we could come up with. So thank you, and we'll see you next week. Take care.